Well, obviously, in 2025, everyone's looking at Universal Studios with Epic Universe, and obviously, there's a lot of people, myself included, that are very excited for this theme park. But I do think it's important when you look at Universal's strategy, it is not just in the Orlando area, and it's not all just hinging on Epic Universe. Obviously, that's a major aspect of it, but their overall really plan and vision is much more encompassing and much more broader. And I did find this article from Blow Loop that talks about sort of Universal's global vision here, their sales strategy, and what they're looking to do. So I figured this would be a good article to read through and get some thoughts on, because I do think it's a very interesting subject, and it's very different from what Disney's doing. And they're really kind of paving their own path with this in terms of how they're going about not only competing with Disney, but overall when it comes to experiences, even outside of theme parks here. So we're going to take a look at this and get some thoughts. So hi, I'm Jared with Capture the Magic. Again, this is Blow Loop. It says Universal's global vision, sales strategy, and partnerships power Epic Universe. It says we speak to Eric Marshall, Senior Vice President of North American Destination Sales at Universal Destinations and Experiences. It says it's an exciting time at Universal Destinations and Experiences with projects such as Epic Universe in Orlando, Universal Horror Unleashed in Las Vegas, and the Universal Kids Resort in Frisco, set to redefine the theme park landscape. As the company expands its footprint, including potential ventures in the UK and other exciting markets, it cements itself as a trailblazer in innovation, partnerships, and strategic growth. As these ambitious developments unfold, we speak to Eric Marshall, Senior Vice President of North American Destination Sales, about Universal's sales strategy and global partnerships. Say, building on partnerships. Universal's success is built on the strength of its partnerships. Those span a broad spectrum of stakeholders, from IP collaborators to destination and management organizations like Visit Florida and Visit Orlando. For Marshall, partnerships are not just a strategy, but a core philosophy that drives Universal's ability to innovate and expand. He says, we're built on partnerships, says Marshall. At our hotels, we work with Lowe's. Many of our parks are founded on IP partnerships, so it's natural for us to extend that ethos to trade partners and DMOs. Where we sit in the marketplace, we feel like without the trade, we can't get where we want to go. This collaborative approach has been instrumental in Universal's expansion. It allows the company to engage with diverse demographics and secure its position as a global leader in the entertainment industry. I mean, that is one thing when you're comparing Universal to Disney. They're very different in terms of how they approach a lot of different things. So both of them have resorts. Disney runs their own resorts. Universal has Lowe's do that for them. Now, there's pros and cons to each. The Lowe's hotels are great, but I think having Lowe's manage the hotels probably limits them on some of the things they can do integration-wise. Like, say, with Disney, they have the magic bands, and you can do the mobile, check-in. You don't have to necessarily go to the front desk to check in. Whereas at Universal, you still have to do that. That is really the only downside to the Universal hotels that I would say that I don't enjoy, is the fact that when you do check in, you still have to go to the front desk. And if it is busy, there's many times you can be waiting 30, 45 minutes to get to the check-in to be able to get to your room. I do wish there was a quicker process, and I hope they work on something like that, but it could be the reason they're not able to do that is because Lowe's maybe is not able to implement that for whatever reason. But that is one thing I would say is that. And then obviously Universal relies a lot more on IPs, Harry Potter, all the different ones that are in the parks. Not everything is owned by Universal, so they have a lot more third parties and IPs that they work with. But it does, in terms of they don't own them outright, so they have to have some sort of split with them. But at the same time, it does open them up to more potential partners, like they brought in Nintendo and things. So that does give them more variety of things they can do outside of just IPs that they own. But again, there is a downside in terms of you do have to work with, other people. You got to make sure that they're happy. So it's a different dynamic. But I think in some instances it's a strength. In some instances it can be a disadvantage. Just kind of depends on how you look at it. So the global audience, Universal Destinations and Experiences international reach. International markets are a critical component of Universal's strategy. According to Marshall, around 30% of the company's business comes from international visitors. The UK and Brazil are especially strong markets. Europe and South America are huge for us, he says. The UK and Brazil are particularly, I swear, I can't ever say it correctly, important, and that international business is critical to our overall results year after year. I mean, both Disney and Universal are much more reliant on international travel than they probably would like to admit. Whenever the parks, both, Disney and Universal, before really international travel opened back up after COVID, I mean, you could see a massive difference in the parks when you didn't have international travel. So it is a big, large piece of the pie when it comes to both of them for sure. It says Epic Universe, the grand payoff. Universal's Epic Universe, set to open in 2025, is the company's most significant project in decades and promises to be a game changer for the Orlando market. The new park will include groundbreaking attractions, immersive environments, and 3 new hotels co-owned and operated by Loews Hotels, Stella Nova, Terra Luna, and the Helios Grand Hotel. Universal Stella Nova Resort opens on January 21st, followed by Terra Luna on March 25th. And again, these are co-owned and operated by Loews Hotels. He says, we're so excited, says Marshall. Epic Universe is the big payoff, but it's also part of a journey we've been down over a decade. In 2014, we had just 3 hotels. By next year, we'll have 11. That kind of growth is just incredible. I mean, you do look at their hotels they have been offering, and that is a good indication of the overall growth of Universal. And like I do enjoy their hotels a lot, and they're at 11. It's obviously a great aspect of the growth there, and I think it has been a great addition because I do enjoy like Surfside and Dockside are still some of the best value hotels you will find out there. You can get a 1-bedroom suite for many times in the low $100 range. You're not going to find that anywhere. I mean, even outside of Disney property, there's not many hotels in general that you're going to find a 1-bedroom suite in that price range. So the fact that they offer not only the quality of the hotels, their locations are solid, but it's also the price points they put them at become a really big asset when you're talking about going against Disney as many aspects. Like, Universal's not cheap necessarily. I'm talking like on the theme park tickets and things. But when it comes to the hotels, it's been a great way for them to break through market share of people. Even if they are going to go to Disney, they may come over and stay at Universal just because it is cheap. It is in their nice hotels, and it's a 20-minute-ish drive to Disney. So it's not that far out of the realm of possibility for many people to just stay at Universal and go over to Disney. But I think for a lot of those people, maybe Universal's thinking is maybe their plan is to do that. But at some point, they're very likely to give Universal a shot if they're staying at Universal property. So I do think for a long time now, Universal has been playing the long game. And I think the hotels have been a very big part of that and breaking in. And even if it's just because you offer cheaper hotel rooms, you do get people to come over and at least experience some aspect of your parks or your resorts from just coming over to stay at the hotels. And then perhaps eventually this leads to, at least repeat stays, could mean to at least going to a theme park one day. And I think this is a game that Universal has been playing, and I think they've been doing well with it. And they go into about Epic Universe, but we're not going to get that in this article here. It says, expanding the Universal destinations and experiences portfolio. While Epic Universe dominates headlines, Universal's growth story extends beyond Orlando. The company has made bold moves to diversify its portfolio, including the launch of Universal Horror Unleashed in Las Vegas and a new kids resort in Texas. These ventures reflect Universal's ability to tailor experiences to specific markets while maintaining a cohesive brand identity. Says these new projects complement what we're doing in Orlando, says Marshall. It's about enticing people to try these experiences, fall in love with Universal, and then graduate to our larger destinations. I'm very curious how this plays out. Now, I don't really have any idea in terms of how much demand is there for a Halloween Horror Nights year-round haunted house thing in Vegas. I would assume, especially on Halloween, it's going to be very popular, but I can't say I know what that would be. But I do think it's an interesting concept because it's sort of like taking your Halloween Horror Nights, coupling it with the tribute store idea, and putting it in its own place out there in Vegas. If it does work, I think we'll see more of these. And I don't think it's a bad idea to take very successful aspects of your theme parks and then sort of create mini experiences. And like they were saying here, it's almost like you eventually graduate up to the larger destinations. Maybe for some people, they're not theme park people. They experience this in Vegas and they go, wow, that was really cool. And I'm sure when you're there, they'll probably give you information about Halloween Horror Nights out in Hollywood or out in Orlando, where people could, be like, oh, I really enjoyed this. Maybe we should go to Halloween Horror Nights. It's almost like a feeder system in a way of getting people in at a lower price point or just being convenient in location on one aspect of an experience and potentially getting those people to graduate up. It's not a bad idea. They're talking about Universal Horror Unleashed here. Universal Horror Unleashed is a new year-round attraction in Area 51 in Vegas. It will bring Universal's massive library of classic horror films and characters to life, including Frankenstein, Dracula, The Mummy, and The Wolfman. Described as a relentless spectacle of horror, Universal Horror Unleashed will include haunted houses themed to Universal classic monsters, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Scarecrow, The Reaping, and Blumhouse's The Exorcist Believer. In the Universal Kids Resort, it says, meanwhile, construction is also underway on the first ever family theme park for Universal's Kid Resort in Frisco, Texas. The resort will sit on 97 acres, will include a 300-room themed hotel and a theme park featuring lands inspired by Universal's iconic brands, characters, and stories. The park will offer family-friendly attractions, interactive entertainment, unique merchandise, food and beverage outlets, and character experiences. Universal says the theme park will have a completely different look, feel, and scale than Universal's existing parks and will appeal to a new audience for the brand. So Universal Kids Resort will inspire the unbridled creativity of kids through imagination discovery and, most importantly, play, says Molly Murphy, president of Universal Creative. We're designing the kids resort so families and kids can feel the thrill of being physically immersed in their most beloved stories and characters. And in the kids park in Frisco, that one I'm very, very curious about, because I've said many times, I think that idea could be easily put in Orlando. You could build a kids resort on the cheap near Epic Universe that would be a major draw for families. And I think it's something they could look at doing in the next 10 years. So you potentially could build an entire kids park based on a lot of the IPs that Universal has: Minions, Jurassic Park, Shrek, Trolls. Like, they have the IPs to be able to do this. And you build it on the cheap, something that doesn't take up a lot of land. Like, it's not going to be nearly as big as Epic Universe. It's not going to cost near as much money because the rides and things like that are not going to be as complex because they're for little kids and small families. And you put that in there. It's a great way to get families to come over and check that out. And also, that would also give you 4 theme parks and a water park now if they did that. So they would have 5 parks in total. And I think it's something that could happen. And I think that, based off maybe the success in Frisco, Texas, how that goes, I think they're looking at that very closely. But I won't be surprised if you see that aspect come to Orlando, or you could see a kids resort pop up in other areas as well. I think one area Universal has struggled with historically are small children. I mean, for the longest time, until recently, when you had kids under, let's say, 3, there weren't a lot of things for them to do. That was one thing we always said when our kids were that young, was the complaints about Universal was not a lot of stuff for kids. But if they're able to do this and do it well and bring this over into the Orlando area, it really could be something that becomes a real tipping point for them. As I think a lot of people with smaller kids still go to Disney quite a bit because they have a lot of things that are basically all ages. Anybody can go to Disney and ride most of the rides there, whereas Universal does have a lot more thrilling attractions. Now with Epic Universe, there is some thrilling attractions, but a lot of these are family-based attractions. But I think this would, yet again, break them into a different segment here to really get into that family market that they've never really gotten into before, and you wouldn't have to spend an insane amount of money to do so. And they also talk about here briefly the potential UK park. So it also fits into Universal's strategy of enticing more people to try its experiences. The company is exploring opportunities to bring its brand to a new audience without cannibalizing its existing markets. It says we spent a lot of time studying these projects to ensure they make sense for both the local market and our global strategy, Marshall says. Universal confirmed plans for a theme park in the UK in December 2023 after purchasing a 476-acre parcel of land south of Bedford. The proposed theme park near Bedford, UK, could dramatically change tourism in the region and beyond. Universal recently undertook a public engagement period for its planned park, which the leaders of 6 local authorities have endorsed. According to an economic impact analysis commissioned by Universal Destinations and Experiences, the project could generate nearly 50 billion, I think that's euros, and probably not euros, that's pounds, for the UK economy during the construction and the first 20 years of operations. That's quite a bit. I mean, there's a lot of people that think in the UK you'd probably have like Lord of the Rings, like maybe probably Harry Potter as well. So there is, I haven't done a ton talking about the UK one, and it really hasn't gotten too much further in the planning process, but I think it does have a lot of potential. There's a lot of people that are very excited. There's a lot of people that come over from the UK to Universal and Disney, so I think it's not a bad idea to have this park there, and then also those same people may also still come over to Orlando, or you just break in through the percentage of people that come over to Orlando being whatever that percentage is, but if you bring it to them, maybe the people that can't afford to go to Orlando would go to this park if it's in the UK. They go on to talk about Universal's ability to push forward during the COVID-19 pandemic is a testament to its resilience and forward-thinking leadership. While many in the industry paused projects, Universal continued to invest in its future. Attractions like Velocicoaster and the Bourne Spectacular were ready to welcome guests as soon as the parks reopened, setting Universal apart from its competitors. Both went on to win industry accolades, with the Bourne Stuntacular winning a Thea Award. I mean, I will say, I know they got some heat during that time period, but I do think Universal has been playing the long game, and I think they saw that as an opportunity. They build quickly. They always have, but they looked at it as an opportunity to really get things moving, and having Velocicoaster and the Bourne Stunt Show, completed during this time period are major assets, and the Bourne Show is fantastic. I love the Indiana Jones Stunt Show. The Bourne show, I think, is better, and we've probably seen it 5 or 6 times. I love it every single time. It's a great stunt show. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. Is one I would make time out of your day to check that out because it is a great show. But I do think, going through that time period, they continued with the construction of Epic Universe during that time period. They had a slight pause, but then they continued, and that is what, that's paying off now in that this park is going to be able to open May of this year. Now, this park would have been open, I believe, in 2023 or maybe 2024 if it was not for COVID, but they, really wanted to get this going because obviously they see major potential, obviously looking to have their ROI come back on this. So their, resiliency during COVID, pushing forward with construction during this time period, I think is really starting to pay off now as this competition with Disney and Universal continues to heat up. It says, our company had the foresight not to stop everything during COVID, Marshall says. We saw there was a brighter day coming and we continued with our development projects. That decision has really paid off. Completely agree. I mean, and I think that mindset is, very telling, is like we saw brighter days coming. Like at that moment, it was really easy, I'm sure, to feel like we got to pause everything, but like understanding things will come back. Like, we're going to continue to do this. I do think it's a testament to Universal's management. The Universal vision. The commitment to innovation and excellence is at the heart of Universal's success. The creative background of Mark Woodbury, chairman and CEO of Universal Destinations and Experiences, has shaped the company's approach. Woodbury has been part of the creative team at Universal Parks and Resorts, which rebranded in 2023 to become Universal Destinations and Experiences for over 30 years, planning and designing experiences worldwide. We are thrilled to expand how we bring the Universal brand to life in new, immersive, and compelling ways for fans around the world using our rich collection of stories, characters, and franchises, said Woodbury, speaking after the rebrand last year. A licensed architect, he was instrumental in creating Universal's Islands of Adventure, the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, and Volcano Bay at Universal Orlando. He also led the development of Universal Studios Japan and Universal Beijing Resort. In 2019, the Themed Entertainment Association recognized his contribution to the broader attractions industry when he won the Buzz Price Lifetime Achievement Award. It says, Mark's journey through Universal is unique, says Marshall. He has such a great perspective, and his leadership has been instrumental in driving our success. I've known about Mark Woodbury for a while. Everything I've heard him say, I've absolutely loved, and one of the things being is the entire focus is on the guest experience and just really trying to provide guests with these experiences. And I think this is an advantage Universal has over Disney in terms of how they are set up. With Disney, the theme parks make so much of the money for them. So very much like the stock price hinges a lot on the theme parks. And I think this is why they get a lot of, trying to get as much money as they can out of the theme parks. And it's just a different animal. Whereas Universal, Comcast being the parent company, what Universal does in the theme parks doesn't have as much of an effect on the Comcast stock price, so it doesn't have as much pressure. And Mark Woodbury basically he's kind of like the Josh D'Amaro of the Universal parks, but he comes from the creative side, which I love. You have somebody, this would be like back in the day having Joe Rohde or somebody on that level in Imagineering run the Disney parks. That's one thing I love about how Universal is set up right now, is Mark Woodbury having had so much experience designing and creating experiences, and now the head of this. And I think it sets an entire tone, and why you're seeing this pay off with Epic Universe and some of the things that Universal has been doing is because of that mindset. And it's not as much a business one as it is just based on experiences. So I think this is one of those things where it's an advantage for Universal that they can set it up this way. And then, they have Comcast and things that they do, and they probably have somebody, I'm sure, I know they do, I just don't know the person off the top of my head, of like in charge of the business side of the parks. But the fact that, he's the head of the destination experiences, I think is a great thing. I love the way that they're set up for that. And really, that's all they go into here. So I just thought it was an interesting outlook in terms of like, not only, like obviously Epic Universe is massive, something I'm looking forward to, a lot of people are, but their strategy is very interesting, and it's very different from Disney. And the fact that they're doing these things in Vegas and in Texas and doing this UK park, like they're definitely diversifying what they're offering. But the fact that they're trying to balance that with almost feeding it into the Orlando area. And I kind of think that is the mindset here of, Epic Universe, Universal Studios is the crown jewel, if you will. And some of these other experiences are mini experiences of that, or feed into that eventually people have a great experience at some of these, other locations, and then go over and check out Universal, because Universal doesn't have, when you're talking about Disney World, it's got decades of branding and decades of nostalgia that people look to, and even people who aren't Disney fans, they want to go to Disney World. It's got that nostalgia, it's got that sentiment about it. Universal doesn't have that. They're trying to build that, and I think this idea here of doing this kind of feeds into that, because it almost speeds that process up. Because if people are looking at Universal and they've never been, they may be very hesitant, because again, theme parks aren't cheap. So like, if you've never been, do you want to take a shot at spending a couple of $1,000s, if not more, to go to Universal, versus you could go to one of these experiences? Let's say you go to the Halloween Horror Nights thing out in Vegas. I don't know how much that's going to be, but it's going to be much less expensive than going to a theme park. Check that out and say you really enjoyed yourself. And maybe they're just like, well, maybe, okay, maybe we go check out at least something to do with, Universal Studios. Like, I think it's a great way to introduce people to a brand that they may not be that familiar with. And just overall, I mean, going into the UK, like, I do think their strategy and their vision and what they're doing currently are fantastic. Again, Mark Woodbury being the CEO of the Destination Experiences, I think has been a massive asset. And I think he is a main catalyst from Epic Universe being able to be as creative as it is. And if you've seen anything from the creative team from Epic Universe, I haven't heard anything I don't like in terms of how they feel about it. The creative, or the head creative for Epic Universe, Steve Tatham, a former Imagineer, they were talking at this New York Comic-Con, and he was getting emotional talking about really like what led him into theme parks, remembering things as a kid. Like, everything you see from them just seems to be very much based off of a passion and a vision, and really wanted to execute that. And I think that comes from the leadership. And I think that's something that's really refreshing to see on that scale. And obviously, going into this year with the Epic Universe, that's looking like it's going to be a fantastic theme park that's going to be very successful. We'll have to wait and see, of course, once it opens, how that ends up shaking out. But overall, I just think they have a very unique strategy. And while, yes, Universal and Disney are competing, and many times, I mean, Disney set the tone and really what theme parks are, and they've had to, be able to set this tone and be able to implement these things for decades. And Universal's definitely taking steps and things that they've done in the past from them, and really doing it their own way. But I do think in terms of strategies like this of diversifying in different areas of the country is something unique that not necessarily Disney is doing, that they're kind of doing on their own, showing some initiative there. So I think it's a unique one. Obviously, I have to wait and see how it plays out. Like I said, I don't know what the demand is for some of this stuff in these areas. I think the Universal Kids Park probably will be very successful, because that's, these regional theme parks usually can be successful, but a kids theme park in an area with small families is probably going to be very successful. But we'll have to wait and see how it goes, and if they do more of these, and if this leads to potentially things like maybe the kids park as a test to see how that does, and if that does well, that moves into Orlando. So there's lots of possibilities here. But overall, I just thought it was a pretty good article about kind of what their strategy is, and just how it is unique in terms of not just, a lot of people think that it's just Disney and Universal going at each other, which they are, but it is even outside of that on many levels, and I think it's a smart one to play. But either way, though, that's going to be it, though, for this video. If you like this video, please like it and subscribe to the channel, as we do lots of coverage here of Universal Studios, Epic Universe, Disney World, and pop culture. And let us know in the comments, what do you think about Universal's strategy here, and do you think it's going to pay off for them in the future? And until next time, we will see you in the parks.